We have drastically reduced our number of chickens, and today I need to deal with all the meat and put it up so that we get the best use of our chicken. Hey friends, it's Barbara Sue at Kowalski Mountain and welcome back to the homestead. Finally, I have been wanting to reduce the size of our chicken flock since the fall, and it's just Philip and I. There's just two of us. We don't need very many chickens. But chicken math is a real thing. And we started with 3 chickens. And then we filled up the incubator, and then we had a whole bunch more, and then we were given some. And before you know it, I don't even know how many chickens we have, but we had about 60. Well, as you can imagine, that was costing us a fortune to feed them. Over $120 a month to feed the chickens. They were going through 1 bag of grain every 3 days. And here in our homestead, we're pretty remote. We don't have a market for eggs, and I was actually cooking the eggs and feeding them back to the chickens, which that's a lot of excess work, and frankly, it's not a good use of our resources. So finally, we have butchered the chickens. The bad thing about butchering typical laying hens is that they don't tend to be very tender. In fact, they tend to be very, very tough. Now, some of our chickens were American breasts, and last night Philip and I had wings for dinner. We were both looking forward to it very much, and some of them were great, and some of them were like rubber. If you've got the secrets on how to cook tender wings from laying hens, let me know. Now, I'm going to guess that those tender wings that we got here and there were my American breast chickens, and then those really rubbery ones were not. We have several breeds. We have black American breasts, which I butchered my black American breasts because they're smaller than white American breasts. And I did a whole blog post on that so that you can understand why we decided to stop raising black American breast chickens. You can see that right up here. But they're not as large as a white American breast, like a lot difference in size. And so I decided to eliminate all of those chickens, and we had quite a few black American breasts. We also had some Australorps, very good laying hen, nice bodied, heavy bodied laying hens, but we just didn't need them any longer, and I didn't want to feed them. And then we had a bunch of barnyard mix, which we had. They had to have some silkies in them. One of my hens had beautiful purple skin, gorgeous purple skin. I'd never seen that before. It was very impressive, actually. Enough about that. Today, I've got to deal with all of this meat and put it up. And I'm going to count the wings to find out how many chickens we actually butchered. Now, for now, I'm going to clear my space here so that we can get started. Now, what I did keep, I have legs and thighs. Here and here. I have wings, I have necks, and then I have breast meat. I'll tell you what I'm going to do with all later, but that's what we're going to deal with. We're going to start with the wings. Alright, now I've cleared my workspace. Now I'm going to count these wings first because I don't know how many chickens that we butchered. Now we did eat 10 wings yesterday, so let's find out how many we have left. 1, 75. Now, why we came up with an odd number, I do not know. So based on these numbers, I have 75 wings. We ate 10 wings last night. We had 1 chicken that we did not keep. She did not look well, and so we did not salvage the meat there. That means we butchered 44 chickens. Now, I still kept 6 laying hens, and I kept my 6 American breast chickens, which is my breeding group. So I still have a dozen chickens, but we butchered 44. let me get the materials and we're going to bag these up. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the spur off of each wing. So if you didn't know, chickens have like a little nail right on the end of their wing. And here's a big one. You can see really well. So you can see how sharp that is, and that can actually puncture the vacuum seal bags. So we're just going to remove all of those. And I just use my kitchen scissors to do that. Now, if you have any tips on how to tenderize the wings of laying hens, I am all ears. So put those in the comments below. Now, even when we butcher our Cornish cross boilers, we always piece out the wings. Because I feel like chicken wings are one of those things that gets wasted on a whole chicken. Because if you cook a whole chicken, like a roasted chicken, most people don't go for the wings first. But when we piece them out, we use them as a meal. To save money, we buy our vacuum seal bags in bulk. And this had 150 feet when I started. It's a standard size bag, and when it's in a roll, that means I need to seal the end to start. Now, the bad thing about doing so much is the vacuum sealer tends to overheat and you have to wait on it. Now, we also like to do double seals everywhere that we do a seal, because if the seal gets broken, then you're going to get freezer burn. Now, I did a blog post on the blog about how we put up our meat. Vacuum seal bags are not our go-to. They're more expensive, and they do get damaged in the freezer frequently. It's not our first choice. See, I'm going to be washing my hands like a million times today. Now, this bag is probably a little bigger than I needed, but I needed to get a size to get started. Now, my vacuum sealer has two options. I have a dry and a moist. I am going to put it on moist. And I'm going to tell it to vacuum and seal. I could hear the moisture moving, and it's actually damp up in here. Sometimes that can affect your seals as well. First bag down. Now, one of the things I do to organize my freezers is I pack my food in bags. These are paper bags, and we used to be able to get them at the grocery stores in Florida, but we can't here. We do buy these, but we reuse them. So using the paper bags is got multiple purposes. For one, it helps me organize my freezer. We have chest freezers, and those are like a pit. And so the bags help me to organize it so that I can find things to use later. The other thing that it does is it keeps these bags from getting banged up. So if I go into the freezer and I start pushing stuff around and I start looking for something, these bags especially can get damaged. And the paper bags prevent that from happening. So of my 44 laying hens, we are going to get 8.5 meals of wings out of those laying hens. Now I was going to weigh this meat for you, but I can't find my big scale and I don't have the patience to look for it. So these are going to go into the freezer. So we've got 8.5 meals of wings. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the thighs and the drumsticks into separate pieces. Now all we have to do is get between the bone. I don't usually cut these two pieces apart, in all honesty. I usually cook them as a full leg quarter. Now the other thing I need to do is I am going to bone the thigh. Now I'm going to go ahead and save these bones for my broth. And the thigh meat is going to go into the ground with all of the breast meat. Now, because laying hens tend to be so tough, I am going to grind all of the breast meat and all of the thigh meat. Now, I suppose by the time I finish doing 75 of these that I'm going to be good at it. All right, the thighs and legs are all separated, and tomorrow I will grind that meat, but today we're going to bag up all these drumsticks. Now I'm going to do them in bags of 10. And I think that they're going to end up being for things like soup, or things that use shredded chicken or cooked chicken, because they are going to cook better in the Instapot than pretty much any other way. So I'm lining up these pretty specifically in the bag so that they'll fit in a smaller bag. And I need to label these as well. And just like the wings, these bags are going to get packed in a paper bag in the freezer, and that way they don't get dinged up. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's 7 packages of 10 legs. So that's 7 meals there, and this is quite a bit of meat for us, so we'll probably get leftovers out of any meal we make with that, plus 1 more bag of wings. Alright, so it's day 2 of wrapping up all of my chicken, and we did keep 8 birds whole. Most of these are my American breast roosters. Now, around the farm, you see my chickens following me around and my big flock that free ranged. But what you didn't see very often is I had a rooster pen. And my rooster pen is just my rooster grow out pen where I grow out my roosters for meat. And I had 6 birds in there. And then the thing with a rooster pen is once you put roosters in it, you can't add more because they will fight the new ones. So that's why there was only 6 in there. But I had a few others that had been integrated into my flock because they got along there and they could live safely there. All of our meat birds we pack in these shrink wrap bags. And I will tell you, these bags are definitely worth the money. Now, off the top of my head, I can't tell you the mill, but I will put it on the screen for you. But these are a heavy-duty bag. I don't have trouble with these bags getting torn up in the freezer. Now, sometimes we do pack them into paper bags, like as a double layer. I'm probably not going to do that today. Probably should, but I'm not going to. Now these bags come with the bags and with the zip ties. They do have a label, but we don't use the labels. Now with these birds, I just want to write the weight on the bag. Oops. So this chicken was 4 pounds, 7.6 ounces. Now these bags are wet because you shrink wrap them by dipping them in hot water. So my average was about 4.5 pounds, which that is great. Now you will notice these birds do not have their wings. That is one thing I always piece out. Even when I keep whole birds, I always piece out the wings because we like our wings. Alright, these are headed to the freezer. Now next up is processing the chicken breasts and the thighs, which I'm going to grind all of that. So I have my grinder set up. I do have it elevated, and I have to get creative of how to elevate it. I actually have a step stool that is the perfect size, but it's in storage. It's not here. So I just have to use what I have around here. Now, we process all of our own meat here at Kowalski Mountain, so we have invested in quality tools. And the amount that the tools will cost you is about processing just one animal. So over time, they definitely pay off. Now these tubs, we use these meat tubs for a lot of things. You might ask yourself, Barbara Sue, you live in an RV. How do you wash something like that? Because this is my sink right here. These get washed in my tub. Because you're right, I don't have any place to wash something this size here in my kitchen, but the tub works perfectly. Now we're going to go ahead and mix the thighs and the breasts together. We're going to grind all this meat, and then we're going to bag it up. Now, one thing that I do is I put a piece of saran wrap over the tops of the controls on my grinder because my hands are going to get dirty, and that way I don't get my machine all dirty. Well, that did not take very long at all. Now, at the end, you notice that I took some meat, some ground meat from the tub, and I put it through the grinder, and that is to help clear out anything that might still be in this shaft. Unplug that since I'm putting my hand in it. Now you can see how the meat at the end kind of goes around the shaft, so that's why we did that little extra step to kind of clean that out. And this is actually a whole piece of meat that did not go through. And I like to be careful with this piece. I don't want to lose it, so I want to make sure I know where it is. All right. Now I have no idea how much meat is here because I did not weigh it, but we're going to go ahead and transition and we're going to bag it up. We use 1 pound bags for bagging up most of our ground meat. Now we do have 2 pound bags, but I so rarely use a 2 pound bag that it's really not worth me making very many of them. So I just ordered new game bags, and I ordered them in a box of 1,000. So I can do 1,000 pounds of meat. Now I almost bought, they sell some of them in red, so you can tell like pork or venison or chicken just by the color of the package. I decided not to go to the extra expense of buying extra bags. We actually have different freezers. So I have a poultry freezer and I have a venison freezer. And when we butcher Apollo, we're going to have to do another freezer for sure. So we'll have room for beef. Usually in different freezers, so it really doesn't matter. Now I am going to mark these bags. These only give me the option of buffalo, elk, moose, antelope, and venison. So maybe I'll do something crazy like antelope and I'll know that those are the chickens. Now I'm just going to fold over some of these tops because that makes me a little bit more efficient as I'm going. Alright, that'll get me started, and I think I decided while I was doing that, I think I'm just going to mark these with a C. C is for chicken. And it's easier to do that before you put food in them, because once they get cold, they're harder to write on. Now I've got my scale, and I have a cup. We'll tear that out. Now the reason I like the cup is because it allows me to stand up that bag. And then I need a regular mouth canning lid. Now I just figured out this little hack. The last time I bagged up meat, we don't have a fancy funnel for filling these, nor do we have a sausage press. Those things would do that. A fancy funnel that would work for these bags costs about $70. So I'm probably going to stick with my canning lid hack. So all I do is I fit that bag right over the top like this. That holds my bag open. Now my canning funnel fits on the top, and the canning funnel is totally optional, but I found that I like it. So now I just fill the bag. Now I have this fancy tool here. And it has tape in it. And it makes a little seal on top of the bag. There we go. And now I just keep on going. Now, one of the reasons that I ground all this meat is because laying hens tend to be really tough. And I'm hoping that by grinding the meat, we're not going to notice that toughness. Now, we did a couple other things as well, or I did another thing. The other thing that we did was we also aged our meat. So we butchered on Sunday and Monday, and today is Friday. So I aged that meat in the coolers on ice for 4 or 5 days. That allows the meat to go through the rigor mortis process that the body goes through when we butcher an animal. See, you can see how helpful the funnel is when I don't use it. All right, now I got to get at it. The meat is all bagged up. Now my last package, I just did in a Ziploc. I'm going to stick this in the fridge for dinner this week. This is 15 ounces, so just under a pound. And now I need to count my bags and see how much meat I got. Now, if you follow me at all, you know we use a lot of trays. These are great for transportation. They multiply my space as much as I can. And I'm going to use one right now. So let's find out how much we got. 1, 2. So right at 29 pounds of ground chicken to add to the freezer. Now this I'm going to have to spread out in layers just so it'll freeze. And then once it does, it'll get packed in a bag just like the other cuts. Now the sun finally came out, and here we live on solar. And while we always have power, because if it's not sunny, we'll use the generator, I try to be mindful of the power I use when it's cloudy. And the sun is finally out. So I am going to go ahead and cook some of these legs from yesterday. Now there are actually 12 in there because I found some in a cooler that didn't get packaged. So there are 12 in there. Now I'm going to cook this in my Instapot, and the Instapot's going to do a couple of things. It's going to make the meat more tender, and it's also going to, like, legs have sinew in them, and that kind of helps cook that down and make it more palatable. Now I'm going to put a little bit of seasoning on this. Not much, because I'm going to make, I think, chicken rice with it. Now I'm going to cook that on the meat setting, and then I'll be able to debone it and make some dinner. Now I only have one task left, and that is to do the broth. And I'm still kind of thinking through how I want to do that. Normally I would do that in the roasting oven, but it's super windy outside today, and the temperatures are going to start to drop, and that means the roasting oven is going to have to work really hard to keep warm. So I might put it on the stove. I really don't want to. I could still put it in the Instapot, but that's going to take a few batches to do it that way. It's very easy that way. It's very hands-off that way. I might still might do that. And I do have 2 Instapots, though I don't know if I can run 2 at the same time. That might blow a breaker, because that uses a lot of power. All right, for now, I've got to deal with what you can't see, which is the dishes. Now that the dishes are behind me, I'm going to go ahead and start this broth because I want to get this behind me. I just want to get done. So if you remember, I saved all the little thigh bones for the broth. And that's because I wasn't being super picky about cutting the meat off. I was getting it off as best as I could, but I wasn't gonna like stress out about not getting all of it. And this is a good way to recover that meat that I wasn't as careful to cut off. Now I am going to roast these bones. Just some of them, not all of them, because they're not all going to fit. But I'm going to roast these in the oven, and then once these are roasted, they're going to go into the broth. Now for the rest of them, I am going to put them in my big pot. Now the other cut that I saved for the broth was the necks. Oh shoot. Yeah. I forgot that there are some livers. and hearts in here that I saved. And honestly, I could leave this in here. Now, I think everyone should make homemade broth. It is so easy, and I make it from scraps. So you can see what I'm putting in here. First off is I'm putting in the leftover bones from the thighs that I cut the meat off. I also have the chicken necks, which I would not use. Now, I'm also going to throw in some onion peels. And I also have some carrot peelings and some celery cuts. Now that scrap bag I keep in my freezer, and as I peel onions or carrots or celery, I put all of those scraps in here to flavor my broth. I'm going to add some salt. And a little bit of pepper. One thing I don't do is I don't over season my broth. And that's because my broth is almost always used in other things. And so I don't want my broth to have such a strong flavor that it overpowers what I'm making. I need to clean that lid. It's very dusty in here, and I haven't used that lid in a while. I'll wash it. Now this is going to take a while. I'm going to let that simmer and cook. I'm going to let that come to a boil, and then I'm going to let it simmer for a while, and then I can can the broth, and then this project will be behind me. My chicken is done. And it's time to see how it looks. Now, all the skin I do not want. Very tender. The Instapot is a miracle worker when it comes to tenderizing tough cuts, because it cooks under pressure and it cooks so much faster, and it just works so easily. And look at how that just falls off the bone. Now the liquid from the Instapot, and I had put a little bit of water in it. Oops, I need to measure that actually. I'm going to use that to make the rice. Now the broth is still cooking, and I am going to have to pressure can that tonight. But for now, I'm going to get dinner rolling. Let's wrap this up. Now I have had my broth simmering, I don't know, for a while. And now I'm just going to strain it through and get all those vegetables and chicken parts out. And then this is going to be put into the pressure canner. Now it's getting late here. And so I am probably going to just keep on going, but I will put here at the end how much broth I made. Now I'm not going to lie. I really enjoyed my chickens, and I do kind of miss them. I really do. We had way too many. I think my count came to 56, so we were just under the 60 chickens that I estimated, plus I still have 7 guineas, so I do have over 60 birds. I'm glad that I can honor our chickens by making a lot of nutritious food that is going to feed and nourish our family. And that at least makes me feel good about feeding them for so long. Now friends, I'm going to wrap this up. Now for those of you who watched to the very end, thank you. I appreciate you so much as always. Now if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, hit that button. I'd love you to be a part of the Kowalski Mountain family. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.